Crips D4 class tier list. All right, let's take a look at this.
Hey guys, how's it going? Kripparian here. Today we're going to do the Diablo 4 class review. Some of you guys have really been waiting for my opinion on this. I have just finished playing the two classes they added in the second round of beta, and this is basically all we're going to get until the game actually releases a couple of months from now. It is a low-level experience, but there is a lot to be learned even from a low-level experience, and I will mention the changes.
Yeah, I do think the low-level experience also matters a lot. People that are going on about how, oh, well, it doesn't matter because they get to higher level. Bro, somebody who plays a druid isn't going to end up at higher level because they're going to quit the game. They're going to see their friends playing on these other specs and doing way better, and they're just going to be like, well, this isn't fun to play. I'm not going to keep playing this. It's that simple.
That I expect the classes to experience on a case-by-case basis as they level up in terms of what probably will happen, because we can see the skill tree and we have rumors from the Vine of players that have maybe played and all that. Now, before we get into it, a quick shout out here to Extrafy. So Extrafy is one of my partners. We have the Kripp mouse. Look at that. Appropriately themed for Diablo 4, I would say. It is my favorite mouse in the world. The Extrafy M4. We made it red, redesigned the outside of it, just the color scheme, but it's exactly as I wanted. It is my favorite mouse in the world. It is the Kripparian mousepad, the Extrafy K4 midsize, that's my favorite keyboard, and an H2 headset, and you can win it by entering the giveaway. It ends end of day Sunday, which is going to be the 26th, end of day on the 26th. So make sure you get in on that. Link is below. It's a Gleam giveaway. Super easy to enter. On to the content. We're going to kick it off with what I consider the worst overall class to the best. We have of Druid. So Druid, and again, I am comparing near 25 with just found gear. So I know I've been playing like a level 25 Sork and a few others for a while after. No, I re-leveled some of those. This is the gear that you can expect to have while you're leveling. Honestly, it's probably a little bit better than you can expect to have, because in the beta there is a roughly 3 times multiplier on dropped legendaries. So these characters, this is not like farming the one level 35 mob for like 20 hours to get gear that's essentially like level 40 gear. No, none of that, okay? This is what you can expect to have as a true leveling experience in terms of gear, and no specific legendaries other than maybe a few that I find, and I'll outline how that worked out. So Druid. Druid works pretty simply. You have spirit generators and you have spirit
so he's using
spenders.
Pulverize too.
There are many classes of skills. There are like light.
Here's one way to tell if a class sucks. If people are putting extra points into their basic skill, it sucks.
Melee, lightning, ranged. Melee, which is like the werewolf transform, and melee, that's the were-bear transform, and you just transform for the attack individually is how it works.
Yep.
The skills are themed appropriately. For the basic skills, there's no real standout. They're all okay. I think maybe Storm Spike is among the better ones because you have Immobilize and Vulnerable that can
vulnerability is really good.
Nice.
It's 20%
Pulverize
damage.
is an interesting skill because every 10 seconds, if you remain over 80 health, it guaranteed overpowers, and overpowers a lot of damage. So basically, this type of Pulverize build, kind of like melee, it's pretty good if you're doing like a questing, because every 10 seconds this ability will actually do a ton of damage. Otherwise, I've found that Landslide is probably the best way to spend your spirit. The Cyclone Armor is pretty good. Blood Hell's pretty good. They have minions, but they don't really shine. You might be able to stack.
Yeah, the minions suck. I tried using them. They're just... they suck.
Because there's some legendary powers, and you have Trample as a movement skill. and I'll just give you guys a little bit of a
All right,
demo
let's take
here.
a look at it.
Overall, I'm going to rank these classes out of 10. This is just a dungeon I like in particular. Druid is the lowest
we might need negative numbers for
damage
this.
class in Diablo 4. I would
And it's
rank
not
it
even
a
close.
4 out of 10 damage. So we can use like a movement skill, but you notice it actually takes a little bit to cast.
Yeah.
So we're going to guaranteed overpower. That's the big slap. So we want to heal, but that actually takes a second. You know, we want to punt away with Cyclone Armor. That takes a second. With Druid, the tools are there, but they're all pretty low damage in the beta.
Bro, he's having to skip past the fucking porcupines, man.
And they're all really slow.
This guy should have used the pylon. That would have helped.
That the Druid will have pretty good damage later on, just because you're able to get some pretty powerful combos.
Yeah, but like whenever you get the pylon, you're gonna go all the way up to like an 8, though.
You won't have to use spirit generators as much. Your spirit always stays the same. It doesn't go up, it doesn't go down. It's not too bad. Oh, Conduit Shrine, that's nice. But the slap while questing...
Alright, now we get to see how good Druid really is.
I think makes it a playable character, even though the damage is like really low. You can see here, this is not good damage. It's like okay just from those overpower guarantees, but that's it.
Yeah.
Very poor damage, very slow. I think the damage will pick up.
Well, if he had used the conduit pylon, he would have done way better damage. So, I mean, he's really gimping himself here. Druid's really not that bad. All he had to do was use the conduit pylon.
Always going to have a bit of a clunky character, so keep that in mind. The survival, I would say, is 6 out of 10. There are survival skills. There is easy ways to fortify. The werebear has some tanky options. There are survivability options, but in the beta, they are, again, not really fully realized. Next up, that's right, it's going to be Barbarian. Barbarian I rank as the second worst, or, you know, placing fourth.
It's like Blizzard's fat shaming. All of the big, beefy classes are the worst.
Of 5 if you want to look at it. There is some good news with Barbarian though, and that is that players have exhaustively played the Barbarian to a point where there are actually pretty good damage builds with Barbarian. The Barbarian, I would say, is a 7 out of 10 damage. The damage is actually respectable. Very playable. Okay,
I think damage is good for Barbarian. It's just their mobility and their slowness, which is what's bad.
Very playable damage. How do we achieve that? Well, we go with Flay because Bleed is pretty good and you get some extra thorns. Rend is actually a decent skill, but it's a damage...
Rend was really good in D3 whenever they buffed it too. I remember that. That was fucking insane whenever they actually made Rend good.
Time, so you kind of have to survive in the meantime. It can keep up vulnerable, which is pretty nice. The war cries are all pretty good because they have powerful synergies if you use all of them, so we're just going to use all of them. And it turns out Thorns is actually pretty good. I wouldn't go all in on a Thorns, I wouldn't go all in on a Bleed, but you know what? If you put it all together, it's like okay. Yes, we have realized okay damage. Bleed plus Thorns plus...
You can tell the good classes versus the bad classes because you tell the good classes compare their damage on elites, and the bad classes compare their damage on quill rats. It's like, how can I do against this quill rat over here? Let's see.
War cries. And war cries have the added benefit that I think they apply to, because I think they're minions, they call the Ancients. This is the triple elite pack. This is like a no joke, but you're gonna start seeing...
Yeah, it's no joke, guys.
The survivability isn't so good. I would rank Barb as the lowest survivability, and this is kind of a misconception, I think, because in previous titles, Barbarians was actually one of the tankiest, if not the tankiest characters. In Diablo 4, even though there are some tools to keep you alive, some survivability options, I think they are below every other class in the game. And because you can't really gain much from closing the gap, you're always going to have that really forced melee playstyle. Even though it's pretty much a consensus that the damage should be pretty good later on. I expect Barbarian to be one of the top damage, if not the top damage in terms of...
Yeah, Barbarian has just more weapon slots, which is going to allow it to have more legendary affixes, which could make it better.
Standing in front of your target and target dummying the damage. In terms of that damage, I think Barb is likely to be top or very near the top. You just never escape the forced melee, which always brings your survivability into question, and the tools are just not sufficient. You know, challenging shout and a little bit of regen from it. You have some bare bone fortify options. There's like some movement skills like leap, but it's a 17-second cooldown, and the bar slots are really important for Barbarian, so it really doesn't do too well. The forced melee is really a problem, and for those Barbarian...
All passive class. Yeah, if there's any spell that you're using as a Barbarian, you've already lost.
Players that are expecting high survivability, this is not the class for you. If you want to play a barbaric, melee, gritty combat character that actually resembles the barbarians in previous games, you're going to want to play the melee rogue. The melee rogue is about the same damage as barbarian, but the survivability is pretty good. So rogues have the option of playing melee or range. These are actually the ranged abilities in both their generators and their spenders for energy. Now, their generators hardly generate very much. They mostly focus off regeneration. So we can do like the flurry here. This is my skill of choice, and it's my skill of choice because it's a very high sustained skill. Where is it here? There it is. Each time Flurry damages a croucher or vulnerable enemy, you are healed for 1% of your maximum life. And Flurry itself, I believe it's here, cascades the vulnerable effect. So what you do is you proc vulnerable with puncture if they get hit for at least 2 of the blades. That's pretty easy to do. You then cascade the vulnerable with Flurry, and Flurry heals you a whole bunch.
That's a lot.
Rogues excel in burst through the effect of imbuements, which imbues the entire skill. So every hit gets this effect. You have the poison, the shadow, the frost. You can use a combination of them. The shadow clone is just 60% more damage for 15 seconds, but it's more than that because you can usually concentrate and use all of your cooldowns at once.
Yeah, so it's
the
like double.
burst is there. The mobility, like look how good the mobility is. That's a huge coverage, and Dash has 2 charges and does pretty good damage, I would say. So overall, the Rogue, I think, matches the Barbarian in damage potential, at least in the beta. I would rank it 7 out of 10 damage. It easily surpasses the Barbarian.
I've seen Rogue damage that's better than mine on my Wizard. So I actually I think that there could be some Rogue builds that are way better than this.
In terms of survivability, just through this significant regeneration that it can have. It's also a really fast character, which, I mean, you can just tell it's just really fast. It's brutally fast. So being a really fast character, it allows you to basically outplay situations. It's for those min-maxers, those high APM players. You're probably going to at least look at the Rogue as one of the options. Now, unlike Barbarian, I don't expect the Rogue's damage to go up that much later, but it's pretty good already. But one thing that I really like with Rogue, I don't know if I have it here.
I think the fact that they can spread status ailments so quickly is going to make them really good at in-game. Because usually status ailments are one of the hardest things to scale whenever you're playing a certain class.
No, it's in the core skills. Yes, here it is. Heal for 1% of your maximum life when you critically strike close enemies. So for melee gameplay in Rogue, in the beta, it's actually really hard to get much crit, but I imagine at high level, you'll be able to target focus crit. And I think with this ability, I don't think it has, like, passives don't tend to have cooldowns in Diablo 4. So I imagine that a high-level rogue actually has much higher survivability. A high-level rogue might be one of the best survivability classes. Maybe. We'll see. You know, with those type of stats, you typically need crit to work for your damage as well. I imagine it does, right? But
I worry that, like, rogue won't have the health pool and the DR pool, like the damage reduction pool, to be able to survive big one-shots. Because I think rogue can heal really fast, but it doesn't matter how much you heal whenever you get one-tapped.
You know, I don't know 100%.
But I don't know a lot about
But
rogue.
overall, I'm feeling pretty confident about it. I think it is a good choice. Necromancer. So we played Necromancer today. Necromancer does a ton of damage. Just out of the gate, I will tell you that Necromancer, in my opinion, is a 10 out of 10 damage class.
It does the most damage. Of all the damage,
Again,
this
we're
does
talking
all
target
of it.
dummy here. Like, mob is here, we do damage. We have skeletons. You have this, like, Book of the Dead thing where you can either use one of 3 different versions of skeleton mages, golems, and melee skeletons, or you can not use them and gain a passive effect. So in the case of skeleton mages, I'm not using them to deal 15 increased damage to vulnerable enemies. Is that worth it? I don't know. Maybe. The skeleton mages are pretty good. The skeleton warriors are pretty good. I'm actually running a very specific build with this character because I happen to find Blood Mist triggers corpse explosion on surrounding corpses when Blood Mist detonates.
That's a good one.
So that probably sounds
that is a good spell.
like alien stuff to you.
Man.
But basically, Necros have no movement skills, but they have this Blood Mist skill where they run slower, and if you put a point into it, it can spawn a corpse under it each second. Now, with this ability, it constantly triggers Corpse Explosion, the actual skill that you have, and each time it does that, it reduces the cooldown of it. So this particular build is pretty high damage, and it's almost near full invulnerability uptime. I imagine this will be pretty nerfed, but the real reason why
100%.
I give Necro 10 out of 10 damage is Bone Splinters.
Yeah, it can keep up vulnerability like 100% of the time.
Actually, okay, Bone Spear is also a really good skill. And Bone Spirit uses all your spirit and like has a massive damage multiplier. That's a really good skill.
Yep, I have that.
There's just some really good skills, but the one skill that I think is creme de la creme here is Bone Splinter. So Bone Splinters, just use it here real quick. It's just like a few little darts basically. Sometimes it shoots 3, sometimes it shoots 5. I think it's like 33% chance to shoot 5, so 1 in 3. It's not too bad. But if something is even pretty close to melee, all of them will hit. So it is a pure shotgun ability. That is really, really nice. The lucky hit chance, considering that you're hitting 3 to 5 times per cast, is very decent. Remember, this is a level 2. At max, if you count the extra splinters, you're likely to get 30% chance. You are probably going to look at a skill that's about 140 average damage. You can get near guaranteed vulnerability because it's very easy to hit with 2, or you can get a passive crit buff.
I think
now,
vulnerability
crit is pretty good, and with bone skills, you can actually get a build where you stack essence and you get massive flat crit chance for just not really using many spenders.
Wow.
And this is insane because the basic skill is, in my opinion, and I think it's pretty clear cut, I think it's the best basic skill in the game. So
yeah, probably.
You can just spam off of that. I think you can make a character purely off of basic skill. And just so we're clear, there are some massive basic skill multipliers. There's gems and weapons, I believe it's yellow gems, that are multipliers to basic skill damage. There is a legendary ability that is like 70% attack speed with basic skills. So the game just has, and I think there's just a stat that is like
you to
22% basic skill damage. So basic skill damage is like super common to skill. The problem is most characters don't have a good basic skill, but the Necro, it easily has the best one. And I have to imagine that Blizzard's not going to create such a massive scaling part of the game and not have any decent basic skills for anyone. The Necros is really a big standout, and I'll just show you here. So this is no bone skills. Like, I have none of those like crazy passives with crit. Look at that, I'm just one-shotting these mobs in melee range. This is an insane ability. Right? Now, it is pretty annoying to have to run
And by the way, keep in mind, all this is just, it pales in comparison to the real damage, which is the corpse explosions. Quill rats and shambles.
To melee and use like a shotgun ability, but I think from a pure number standpoint, it's very good. We also see the minions doing a pretty good job at doing a little bit of extra damage, and of course tanking. If you're curious, kind of stood still there. That was kind of weird. We have Cursing, which offers a powerful survivability boost, and the minions tend to just also take a few hits. But if you're noticing, the minions are also kind of dying a lot. Actually, you can't move it. What is that about?
By the way, I don't like how basic skills work in the game. I think that it's stupid that there's a mandatory skill that every single time you use it, it feels bad. Why? It's silly.
Anyway, you get the idea. Necros are pretty cool. Why can't I move with that? That's actually pretty weird. Might actually be bugged or something. I'm not able to move when I have Blood Mist active, but normally you can, and it auto spawns the detonates, which is pretty good. But yes, so right now I have the Decrepify Curse, which is a slow 40% and 20% less damage. So that is a very big effect. No, we got it. I'll just click. And yeah, it's pretty good. I think there might be some options for minion-based builds, but I would say they would be slim at endgame.
It depends on how minions scale. Because I would worry that, like, the minions would just get absolutely fucking deleted whenever you take them into, like, higher level content. But I'm not sure about that.
Have the melee buffs, like you can get 45% increased life on your skeleton warriors. Also, your minions get your stats, but we're playing on the second difficulty of 4 difficulty levels, and if 45 health is the difference, and these are just dying a lot, yeah, I don't think that end game you're going to look towards full minion builds. Maybe, but you're going to have to spend...
I kind of like full minion builds. I feel like if you're playing a necromancer and you don't want a full minion build, you're playing a fucking sorcerer.
A lot of your time
you should expect
in
to have
maintenance.
minions.
Even with this build, you have to spend some time in minion maintenance. Now, while Necros have the best basic skill in the game, very powerful core skills, very powerful AoE skills, powerful legendary combos, and curses, numbers-wise, they're great. Very high damage, take less damage. However, one thing they don't have at all is a movement skill. And I really need to factor that in when considering the overall survival, because survival is not just taking...
Yeah, necromancers will probably do better at higher level content, like more difficult content with things that do more damage, because in that circumstance, you're going to be dealing with probably more mobs if you group all of them up. Like, in general, faster classes are better at doing easier content really fast, and slower classes are better at doing harder content a little bit slower.
Less damage, and certainly Necros take a little bit less damage than, you know, the baseline 100%. You know, they still have some tools with the minions. Now, the minions are going to die if you have like 2 or 3 rares, or if you find a butcher or any like really hard boss, and it can be really annoying because you need a corpse to summon one of them, right? I would put the Necros survival at 5. Just because of a no movement skill, it is going to be really tough.
I think that Kripp just isn't really taking into account the legendary, because he knows, I mean, it's obviously going to get nerfed. Because, yeah, I think without that legendary, the survivability is not insane. But I think also the survivability, if you're playing with minions, goes from like a 5 to like an 8 or a 9.
to not get pinned down, surrounded, and killed. And I know we have like a near full invulnerability build right now with the Blood Mist weapon affix. I think the damage of this is pretty good, but I think Blizzard is not going to look kindly upon a full invulnerability build, so I wouldn't count on that making it through.
It's done.
But because Necro has so many powerful offensive options, I think that Necro will still likely be king of damage until you get to like the end game, and you're looking at, you know, the super stacking abilities, min-maxing gear, at which point I'm expecting the Barbarian to pull ahead of the other classes. At least I hope so, because otherwise Barbarian is going to be completely hopeless at everything. So that's 4 out of 5 classes. Obviously, I think Sorc is the number one class, but how do I rank it in numbers? So the Sorcerer has...
I think Sorc damage is probably... Sorc is really good to play, more so than anything else. I would say damage is an 8, survivability is a 9, but like playability is a 10.
Pretty decent basic abilities, but it doesn't really need to use them because the resource system just regenerates pretty quickly. Like, if you look at it, that's an that regeneration rate is about as much as you can get Fury on a Barbarian constantly using generators. Okay, the Sorc just gets it. You know, yeah. We have powerful conjuration abilities that don't do a lot of damage per hit, but they stay up and continuously do damage. Damage-wise, the Sorcerer is very powerful. The teleport skill is the best movement skill in the game. It has the longest distance. It can go through walls. It can be used anytime because it gives you unstoppable, so you can use it while you're CC'd to break CC.
Big good.
And if you level the ability, it actually lowers the cooldown by about 0.5 seconds. Now, I was able to get a level 8 Hydra on the Sorc that I was decking out, and I imagine you can get skills much further than that. So if we're looking at like a level 10 teleport with some cooldown reduction, I think you're looking at about a 5-second or so teleport endgame. And you can get this rune then. After teleporting, you gain 30% damage reduction for 5 seconds, which is ridiculous. I also mentioned in the How Good is Diablo 4 video the barrier stacking with Align the Elements. Align the Elements reduces the damage you take from elites, bosses, and players.
Think about that, like, because it just stacks up. Like, that's every single time you get hit. Like, basically going into an elite fight, you have a 50% barrier passively every single time.
By half. And if you never take health damage, if you're constantly cycling barriers, it never drops when you're hit. So the survivability tools and the fact that the Sorcerer has many incredibly powerful defensive tools on top of the cycled barriers, I would rank the Sorc as a 10 out of 10 survival. I think the Sorcerer, even though it sounds a little bit counter-theming, and the theming is actually very good for the class of Diablo 4, even though it sounds a little bit counterintuitive for the theming of these roles traditionally in like role-play games, yeah, the Sorcerer's got it. You know, 4 to 6 seconds. Yeah,
you feel like a sorcerer whenever you're playing the Sorcerer. That's what we like to see. Absolutely. Yeah, I really, really like it. Six Sorc's Glass Cannon. I do think that Necromancer will probably pull ahead towards the end, because there will be mobs that the Necromancer can just have minions tank instead of them, and you'll get to the point in the game where one hit will pretty much either insta-gib you or insta-gib your minion. That's the only reason. And also, Sorcerer doesn't have, like, you can't attack a Hydra, which is a good and a bad thing.
Immunity, freeze everything, constant freeze, constant chills, constant barriers, multiple immunities, multiple CC breaks, the best passive damage reduction. Barriers are not just extra health. They're temporary, but because you're putting them up repeatedly, they actually function as a form of regeneration. because it's not like your health goes up by 30% and then you take damage and you have to heal it back up. No, the barrier just absorbs all the damage, then you get another barrier. This is actually a form of regeneration, so the sorcerer is also the highest sustained character in the game.
Wow.
It's possible that Rogue will overcome it when it comes to like end game, and I mentioned kind of the crit scaling of regeneration.
Yeah, we'll see.
Damage-wise, I think the Sork is a 9 out of 10. I think that Necro seems to have higher target dummy-based DPS. Like if you stand in front of your target and
yeah, Necromancer, if you put a Necromancer, like in terms of killing Butcher, I bet you could kill Butcher fastest with a Necromancer. Assuming that he doesn't just like insta-gib all of the pets.
Just spamming the skills,
has
single
better
target.
Effective DPS.
I think the Necro does, at least right now, outscale the Sork, but the Sork doesn't really play that kind of game. You know, you teleport a screen away.
So
the Necro doesn't even have a movement skill. You know, I did one cast, and that Hydra cleared.
So you can tell that it's a good class because he's testing the damage on elites rather than quill rats.
Everything, right? So here we can just go immune, and again, this is a freshly leveled 25. It actually only took me 2.5 hours to level to 25. So the damage, it's not 10 out of 10. It's not 10 out of 10, but the ease of use, the fact that you absolutely murder trash mobs, the fact that you have ridiculous survivability, the best movement skill in the game, and the dynamic playstyle.
He's not even using double dick Hydras. Think about that.
The enchantment system that you can change up in combat, right? In combat, it is ridiculous. It's a super dynamic playstyle. It is the most versatile, the most mobile class in the game. And the reason why I am pretty certain I'm going to be playing a sorcerer on launch, it's the fastest character clearing these dungeons.
I'm not sure what I'm going to play. It depends on what they release in like the end game previews. It's between right now. It's between Sorcerer, Necromancer, and Barbarian.
There's just no ifs and or like this. Just it just is. It is that. Yes, you might lose out to damage to like a Necromancer or maybe burst to a Barbarian, but in terms of how long it takes to actually clear a dungeon, Sork is the best in terms of real effectiveness.
Yeah, it's like this is one of the things that like a lot of people don't understand is that like the effectiveness of the class is not just the target dummy DPS. It's like how good does it deal with like getting out of traps? You know, like, for example, you get walled in, you teleport away. You've got 3 different barriers. Like, there are so many different ways that Sorcerer scales so insanely well. Like, look at Hydra. Like, he's literally hitting things that are over here, and and the Hydra is here, and he's here.
Sork is actually just the best right now.
Leaderboard
Very
is class-based in D3.
Dynamic playstyle, the best survivability. I'm going Sork. Hope this video has been informative, and I await more Diablo content. Hopefully you do as well. Thanks for watching.
I definitely do. I'm very excited. That was a good video. Sork is literally the best class. Balance, defense, damage, defense, mobility. I think that the goal should not be to make every class be as powerful as Sorcerer. It should be to make every class feel as powerful as Sorcerer. Sorcerer feels incredibly good. It is the best feeling class, I think, in the entire game. I really like it. Yeah, just make them fun to play, and that's what matters. Yeah, 17 damage. Man. Druids, huh? Druids. Oh, Druids. Give the video a like. I think this is pretty fair. Yeah, I mean, I could go through and show you, like, because the thing is, like, Kripp obviously hasn't min-maxed. Like, I didn't level 2 of the classes. I didn't level a Druid, really, and I didn't level a Rogue. But I min-maxed the fuck out of a Sorcerer, and I min-maxed the fuck out of a Necromancer. KW top class. Druid is like playing one of the necro skeletons. Well, I don't know if it would be like an entire skeleton, but maybe like a low level skeleton. He did min-max sorcerer, he just didn't show it. Oh, really? Okay, yeah, I wasn't sure. I guess that would probably make sense because that's the first thing that he played. Would you be willing to try Rogue? Yeah, I would be willing to try out Rogue. Minion gameplay. Is Sork is way better than yours? Really? I don't know. Like, I'm very happy with my Sorcerer. Like, I think his Sorcerer is definitely more well-rounded, and his Sorcerer could probably take on higher level content, but I feel like I can fucking clear dungeons so fast with my Sorcerer. Like, I'm never stressed out. I'm never worried. Double Hydra, 3-second bosses. I'm very happy. Play Druid at launch. I don't think that you could pay me any amount of money to do that. That would be like self-harm. He has rank 8 Hydra. That's really good. I only have rank 7. You can probably take on high-level content, so you're saying it's better? No, not at all. Some classes are better at speed farming low-level content. Other classes are better at farming high-level content. This is just the way the game is. Yeah, and it's always a gamble, and it's like is it better to speed farm low level content that drops less gear, or gear that isn't as good, or is it better to take longer and farm higher level content that drops better gear? And it's a sliding scale. It's not like a one is better than the other. It really depends on how fast and how slow each one is. Barb will be a one-hit boss killer at max level, but Sork probably stays best overall class. Yeah, exactly. By the time the Barb gets to the boss to one-shot it, the Sork is already in the next dungeon. Because Barb is just... And the Druid's still like level, like 23. He's not even done leveling. My Druid clears everything, one-shot elites, unkillable, perma-fortify. I wish you would watch my gameplay, dude. No, probably not. Nah, it probably sucks, just like every other Druid video I've seen. It's probably garbage. Now, I don't really care if somebody shows me a video of a Druid killing... Like, if somebody shows me a video of a Druid one-shotting a boss, this will not change my opinion on Druids whatsoever. They will still be bad. Yeah. Bro, the only relevant spec for Druid is Pylon Druid.